Bandsaws are an extremely versatile machine and arguably the most common piece of woodworking equipment found in any workshop. However, they're only as good as the cutting tool that's fitted. To get the best results from your bandsaw, it's important to make sure the blade that you are using is sharp, the correct width and tooth configuration. Failure to do so will reduce the quality of finish and also the accuracy of cut. Hi, I'm Lee, operator trainer from Dalton's Wadkin, and today I'll be showing you the correct method to change a bandsaw blade. For safely changing a bandsaw blade, it's really important to make sure that you're wearing anti-cut gloves and also safety eye protection. First things first, we look at the type of blade we're using. It's important to make sure that you select the correct blade for the material that you're cutting and the operation that you're doing, whether that be softwoods, hardwoods, plastics or metals. You also need to look at the width of the blade to make sure that's suitable for curved or straight cutting. If you'd like to see a video around selection of blades, please comment below. The blade we're going to be using today is an 1/2 inch blade with 6 teeth per inch. The next stage is to remove the existing bandsaw blade. Before we do that, we need to make sure that the machine is isolated. If it's hardwired, we make sure the isolator is turned off on the wall. If it's a plug-in machine, make sure that the plug is disconnected so there's no power to the machine at all. Next stage we need to do is to remove the pulley guards to open up into the machine. Then we need to look at the guide units, making sure that they're moved back away from the blade so it's not restricting any further setting. We do that by winding the guide rollers back out the way, and then the thrust wheel at the back, just pushing that back clear away from the blade as well. Ensure you check if your machine has got 2 guide units, one above the machine bed and one below the machine bed. You need to make sure that they're both fully moved back out of the way. Now we can release the strain on the blade by turning the tensioning wheel. Once the strain starts to slacken off, you'll see the blade come loose and then it's ready to remove from the machine. All we need to do is just feed the blade through the slot on the front guard and through the slot on the machine bed. Once the blade's been removed, it's important to make sure that you fold it correctly. 1, to prevent damage, and 2, to make it safe to store. While we've got the blade off, it's a good opportunity to check the condition of the pulleys and the rubber surface, looking for any resin build-up or pitting. So the next stage is fitting the new blade onto the machine. We start by feeding that through the slot in the machine bed, then through the slot into the guard as well, and dropping the blade over onto the top of the top pulley. And then drop down onto the bottom and just pull that round to the bottom pulley as well. Before I apply tension at strain, I want to make sure that the blade is sitting central onto the pulleys, and then we can tighten that up. It's important to make sure that you get the right amount of strain on the blade. Overstraining it will cause the blade to snap. Not enough strain will cause the blade to actually run off the pulley while cutting. On most machines, you have an indicator on the back of the machine giving you a size reading to the width of the blade. I also like to manually check that just by pressing onto the side of the blade, and you're wanting about 6 mil flex under light pressure. So next we need to look at the tracking of the bandsaw blade. You need to make sure that the blade runs central onto the top pulley. That can be adjusted on the back of the machine by tilting the top pulley forwards or backwards as you're rotating the pulley to get it to sit central. You need to pay particular attention to the hazards while doing this. The trapping issue here in between the blade and the pulley, and also the exposed blade as you're rotating it by hand. Okay, so I'll begin by turning the wheel, checking if the blade is moving much and if it's sitting central, which is not too bad. Make a fine adjustment on the back, rotating it by hand again, checking to see that it's there. Okay, and I'm happy with how that's tracking now. Okay, the next stage is to make sure that we're setting the guide units correctly. There's 2 of those, one above and below the machine table. I'll start with the one at the top. These play a key part in making sure that the blade runs true and cuts straight and doesn't deviate during cutting. It holds it in line. We start by moving the guide unit forward so that it's covering as much of the body of the saw blade as possible, coming up just behind the gullet area of the blade. That's just slid forward and we can lock that off in place. Next thing is we need to then wind the guide rollers themselves up against the body of the saw blade. So we can wind those in, making sure they're supporting it as much as possible and as close as possible to the blade without causing any friction. So do the same on this side, getting those up as close as possible, and we can just lock that off. The last thing we need to do is adjust the thrust bearing itself. That needs to come up as close as possible to the back of the blade, normally allowing about a 1mm gap. This stops us from pushing the blade off the back of the pulley itself. When that's in position, we can lock that off. Okay, test that. Inside. So that's the top unit set now. What we're going to do is repeat the process underneath. Okay, so now we need to check the machine over to make sure that it's safe to start. Just checking that it's tracked correctly, the top and the bottom guide unit set, and all the guardings back in place. So we can now close the pulley doors, and we're safe to start the machine. To do that, I need to make sure that I've got my safety glasses on and that I turn the isolator on to the powers to the machine. Okay, so we can now start that up and test the machine. Yep, I'm happy with the setting of that. So that's it. If you've liked the video, please give us a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for future videos, tutorials, tips and machine demonstrations. And also don't forget that all machine operators within the UK need to be suitably trained. If you need any further advice with that, please contact our team on the links below. And thanks for watching.